Good evening, good day, and good morning. Welcome to Customer Value and Beyond. I'm Stephen Lewandowski, and I'm honored to have you with us today. We bring you insights from decades in tech, B2B SaaS, and customer success, sharing real stories, answering your burning questions, and exploring new ways to drive real customer value without taking ourselves too seriously. This show will be live streamed on LinkedIn, YouTube, and a recording will be made available via Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. But enough about us. Today I'm excited to introduce the real star of the show, Christian Richter. Christian, as the Chief Customer Officer for both SAP LeanIX and SAP Signavio, you are bridging two massive worlds, enterprise architecture and business process transformation. Why don't you jump in, tell us a bit about yourself and what keeps you busy these days?
Hi, Stephen. It's very nice to be here, and thanks for the invitation. Also, before I talk about myself, obviously today is a big moment for you. You haven't mentioned it yet, right? So the founding moment of your own company. So congratulations for that. And
Very
I'm sure
true. Thank you
we'll
so
get
much.
into that throughout our conversation. So congrats and all the best from my side. So.
Thank you.
I mean, briefly about myself, I'm Christian. As you said, I'm heading customer success for SAP Signavio and SAP LeanIX. I'm on the journey of customer success now for more than 9 years already, and have built up the customer success team of LeanIX right from the start. And then scaled all the functions from customer support, customer success management, services, customer success engineering, everything that's related to the experience of our customers since then. So that's been a fun ride over the last couple of years. Since 2 years now, part of SAP since the acquisition. And now, as you said, trying to bridge the worlds of enterprise architecture and business process management.
Lovely. Two topics I also love quite a bit, and for everybody who isn't aware of that, it's actually quite funny. We've known each other quite a while. I think we met each other, I think shortly after you joined LeanIX in London during Pulse, Gainside Pulse, I think 2017-ish, something like that, which
Yes,
was
that
quite funny. I'm not sure if we met at the event or at a bar, but we met during the event in London, and I can imagine it quite fondly. And we've stayed in touch since then, so it must be 8 or 9 years since we've met there. So
yeah,
yeah,
I think I
really, really
stalked you, so I knew you were there, right? So LeanIX and Signavio were partners pre-acquisition time since the very beginning almost, and I knew that I saw on the list that there are or the team of Signavio is at the Gainside Pulse conference. So I was trying to chase you and found you. But I think I found you in a bar first, indeed, and then at the conference
I think
afterwards.
that's pretty true. I think our whole team was at that bar, and it's quite funny because back then I was, I think, still director of customer success at Signavio, and you just get started, I think, with LeanIX shortly before. And now basically things change, right? So you're managing both teams now in the SAP space. So it's a wonderful development. So I know many of your team members right now who are still there and love you, by the way. I think I got probably 17 praising messages of you and what a great manager or this live show. And fun fact, this is the first time ever I got so many messages about someone. So congrats. Seems to say a lot about your managerial skills. And speaking about those, we've talked now a bit about how you got started at LeanIX and what you're doing nowadays. Is there maybe something, and this is something we love doing here, something your CV or your LinkedIn page wouldn't tell us about your background? So something that brought you here, which might not be B2B SaaS related.
Yeah. So I for sure haven't done B2B SaaS all my life, right? And some of the things you see, I started in consulting and had a bit of like corporate experience before, which taught me a lot of things. But I think one thing that I have not mentioned is that when I was studying, I also had the idea to found something, and that was a mattress company, right? So selling mattresses via the internet. So and we bootstrapped it via eBay. That was interesting. We had good access to high quality like foam product, and which is like pillows and like mattresses and all that stuff. And then we organized everything around it. It worked really well, and 2 to 3 years, we sold via the internet. And if I think about that now, that could have turned into a successful startup scale-up. But at that point, I was like, okay, let's do the standard stuff. Let's go into consulting and learn something real. But there was some time of true entrepreneurship during my university times.
I love it. And I think things turned out quite well for you, but having now founded ourselves, I know how exciting that must have been, and especially if it also worked out quite well. So for everybody who doesn't know, we today announced the founding of the Addressable Value real company. Stefan Kromner and myself, who was also a SVP engineering at SAP and was a founding employee at Signavio. And we were cooking this up for quite a while. So almost 2 years ago, we started cooking this up, and now finally announcing it is, of course, for us also a big relief and a very happy moment. So taking your entrepreneurial experience and maybe not so much from the mattresses themselves, but what of maybe those experiences or other related background stories are skills that help you in these complex domains you unite, right? Because you mentioned enterprise architecture, business transformation, which in itself are already huge complex topics. And what skills did you bring from these past experiences, which makes you tackle this challenge nowadays?
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of things to know and to tackle when wanting to perform a role in customer success, right? So I think the first thing is about the people, like your own team, and setting a direction which everyone can understand and sympathize with. And I think a lot is also about understanding the domain that we are in, right? So and I, from the times at Deutsche Telekom, which was my corporate experience before the 6-7 years, I got a deep understanding about both processes and architecture and what works well, and also what doesn't work well, right? So if you have multiple systems doing the same thing, it's just very difficult to bring change into a landscape or into a customer experience. It also makes the processes very cumbersome, redundant, and like in the end, the customers who are like using it, that's frustrating. I think a lot of what we do in customer success also reminds me of the consulting times, working with customers, being analytical on what the customers want to achieve, and like delivering options, how they can get to the results. More now in customer success with the software. On the consulting side, it's more with concepts, right? So convincing that your concept is the best one, the right one, and presented nicely in a PowerPoint. But I think that willingness to customers and do something with it, that was crucial over the last years. And what I've found personally always very helpful also when hiring people later on is if people can really identify with the domain or the product that you're solving for. And I mean, process management and enterprise architecture, it's like B2B, right? So and some people say that's boring, right? But then you find people who are saying like, look, the problem that you are solving, I've seen that in my previous company, or I see it in my current company, and it's really a pain, right? So I think that's the kind of identification that you need in the people, so that this is not just another job for them, but that's really something that they identify with and where they want to make the lives of our customers in the end better.
Yeah. And I think what you mentioned about this, like, let's call it consultative approach, I think that was even, I think with LeanIX even more important than for Signavio in the early days, that maybe for context, we don't have that many complex B2B SaaS vendors in Germany, right? So there are a few, but most are not of the complexity of like companies in the process mining or enterprise architecture sector. And customer success there is a completely different game to, let's say, e-commerce or other sectors, right? So this whole approach of having to have proper professional service, having like a consultative approach, having something like success engineering, which you mentioned earlier, is crucial for making it a success. And where Signavio initially was a very like business side driven thing with methodology and the approach, yours was always way more technical, right? And way more also in the IT department. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense that you already came in with that approach. During that time, basically from starting at LeanIX up to basically now, was there ever a moment where you thought, gosh, I think I have to pinch myself. I can't believe it's true that this is my job and this is why what I'm experiencing that. Was there ever a moment where you thought, this seems surreal?
So I would say, although I always headed customer success, my over the last 9 years, my job probably changed 10 times. And I recall the first moment that I probably had was when I needed to like do scripts again, right? So, and I mean, I studied that back in some years ago. And then I was like, okay, that's a real surprise after like living for years in PowerPoint City to go like into the engine room and like fetching data from APIs, transforming the data, and then playing it back to the workspaces of the customer. So that was kind of interesting, and I must admit I'm very thankful that I had very capable team members who helped me understand what's needed. But that was for sure a moment like, wow, that's crazy. But if you're joining a company of 20, 25 people at that time, things are just different. But on the other hand, it's so rewarding, right? So it's so rewarding to see the results of what you do, ultimately to get the customer feedback instantly and to move things forward. And I think it's always hard to evaluate that on a like day-to-day basis because you're so ingrained in the work and like deep in it. But then I felt it always at the end of every year, like reflecting what happened in that year, and I could almost never believe it what we did. And our founder Andre, he always did a nice thing for Christmas, right? So he went through a summary at the like year-end party. He went through a summary of the achievements of the year, and I was like standing there. I couldn't almost never believe what my own team has achieved in that year. But then listening to all the teams, what they have achieved, like getting into Gartner's Magic Quadrant, and so on, making X% of revenues now in the US, where was one of the goals at the time, and so on, hiring ex-colleagues. Really, that happened in that year? It's unbelievable, right? So that moment of like realizing how fast things go, even though when you are in the moment, you rather feel things don't move fast enough. That was a crazy realization.
I can believe that, and I think it's always something different to kind of experience that in the earlier days of such a company, right? Because the structures aren't there yet, right? You're still building basically the building while you're trying to increase the height of it. And Gero always called it the tornado, right? So being in a fast-growing startup feels like a tornado because you're always trying to kind of fix and create things while this thing is moving and being built. So I think that's a very unique challenge, but also excitement. And I think those are crucial times where you kind of learn how to just do stuff, right? Execute and build these things, why you need to perform and deliver the results as well. And I think what you mentioned regarding this annual check-in, right? And just see and report and talk to your teams and tell them, okay, this is what we achieved, this is what went well, this is maybe what did not go as planned, but just having the awareness and just saying, hey, the year wasn't bad, right? It was great. Look at what we've achieved, right? Although it might have seemed challenging, I think it's super valuable. Talking about the whole topic of complexity and trying to find a bridge to the customer value that you were delivering also to these different customers in the different areas of your business. Having this unique intersection, right, which you're responsible for right now, which are the complex fields of enterprise architecture and process, let's call it process mining, right? So process management, workflow, and process mining on the other side. How does a definition of customer value differ between those two? Is there a difference between like the maybe enterprise architect on the one side and the process owner on the other side? Is there a different language or a different currency of success? Can you maybe shine a light on how different it is to articulate the value for those two different groups, although I'm aware there are probably shades in both of them as well?
Yeah. I can say that I'm very happy that I was enlightened over the last 2 years on the approach to value on the process side, because the years before, I mean, the ultimate goal that we wanted to achieve on the LeanIX side is to show and prove the value for our customer. So I think that's first of all the general ambition, where I see a lot of software companies are going in that direction. And for me, I saw like basically 3 steps of that value journey. The first, when we were like in the very beginning, it was about like, let's try to, and I'm talking about the LeanIX side, let's try to win a deal by showing value, right? And that started from, we show you how we are superior in features and functionalities, to how do we really solve a business problem for you, right? And that business problem could be like reducing the IT costs or application costs, because we help customers identify redundant applications. So when they are using 10 softwares for project management, and we are like showing the respective costs for that and who runs them, how can you consolidate over time, that's a value for a customer. That was like a lot of pre-sale, so feeding the business case of our customers, that they can go to the CFO, get the approval for the software purchase and go, right? Then I think what's missing in there is the like what software is, what value is really realized for the customer. And going back to a customer and a year after the purchase and saying like, look, this is what we've shown to you as a potential value, and this is what got into your business case. And being transparent and saying like, look, you wanted to save 10%, but actually we see you haven't progressed that far in like identifying even 10% of potential value. You might not even have used the features to identify that. So that, but it's ultimately important, because software as a service can be like switched so fast between companies. So in customer success, I think it needs to be our mission that we hold the customers accountable for the things that they want and intend to achieve with the solutions that we offer. So as a customer success manager, you need to be able to go back to that customer and say like, look, this is what we wanted to achieve. Perhaps we are not there yet, but I, as a CSM, I'm here to help you to like stay on that path, because we know our customer champion will get the question at some point, like, why are we spending that amount for the solution, right? So, and that needs to be a good answer, and that it's beyond the initial style, way beyond that point. So, and I think that the discipline of enterprise architecture. I mean, I already gave the example, it's redundant applications, but a lot of customers would say, like, I get transparency, I can take data-driven decisions, and translating that more qualitative soft value into something that's more tangible value and resonates with the CIO or the CFO of the company. I think that's super crucial. And I think that was a big journey for us to get to that point, right? And help us understand, help our customers understand. We did like studies with companies to understand our value drivers and to get to the real assumptions. We did interviews with customers, all these things. And then to your question, like, and then I got into the world of like process mining, process analytics, right? Where value is just the currency of the product, right? And where you're like measuring how you are improving processes, how you are limiting maverick buying, and so on. So where you're really like adopting the language of the business, which for me was a new way of looking at value. But it's really like this bottom up analysis, which also makes it actionable in the end, right? Because it's on the level of the transactions of the organizational units that are doing the things in the right or in the wrong way or in an efficient way, and getting an insight out of that data that allows you to say, like, if with that business unit we are changing the process in a certain way, we are able to save X million. I think that's a real next step of thinking about value. But given the history and the different domains, I can now say, like, I think I've seen quite some dimensions of value. Things. The one thing help you to win the deal, the others help you to keep the customer. But if you want to have like real provable impact, then I'm really thankful for the deeper insights now on the process domain here.
Great answer. And I think what after getting into like the whole SAP ecosystem, right, and also benefiting from the structures and organization that are part of that, I think the first thing that really surprised me very positively was the whole discipline of value engineering, right? The whole discipline of just, especially in sales, like supporting the sales, creating business cases and getting that over the line and creating a proper business and making sure customers pursue the right value. I think that was really impressive what happened there. And this is basically what we also took today to our founding of the company, right? Really saying, okay, how can you take what companies like SAP and other large companies are doing with these value engineering teams, right? With large teams that make sure this is created. How can you make that or replicate that in a scalable way for smaller SaaS companies? And this is a bit what drove us and why this is existing today, right? And you mentioned business reviews earlier, right? And what I saw in startups and scale-ups a lot was this is a first topic that comes up, right? So how can we improve business reviews? This old discussion of should it be a QBR or an EBR or what should it be, right? Which is something which should be discussed probably a bit deeper. But the importance of that meeting would be to align on the value, right? Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve? And ideally, you identified that sometime during the sales cycle, right? That was somehow documented. And ideally, you would have some kind of like a value journey, right? Where this is just continuously carried through the organization. Stefan, my co-founder, always calls it the American football, right? So the ball is always changing hands, but it doesn't change the game, right? The ball is the value and it should be carried over ideally into a touchdown zone and then again and again cause touchdowns. Where do you see, not necessarily in your organization, but where do you see in general in the realm of SaaS, as you also talk to a lot of companies, where do you see the biggest gaps in that journey? Where is this value conversation broken, and where does information get lost?
Yeah. I think when I look at the pre-sales teams, I think they are really good in like articulating the value because they need to, right? So you can't sell the product, or perhaps you can sell it if you have you're just talking about feature and functionality.
Some might do.
It's a way better sell if you're building the business case, and I think it depends also on the deal size that you have, right? So if you are in the like 5-digit range, I think it's probably not necessary and too much over engineered. And you rather have a transactional sell. But I think the closer you get to the 500,000 like annual contract value, you need that because you're ultimately hitting like budget approval steps of the customers where this is needed, right? So it's asked, and there are smart people on the customer end who will challenge a lot what you write into your assumptions, and if there's really a customer that achieved that value. So I think that side, I would say, is working well. When it then comes to the handover of to the post sales team, I think that needs, if those assessments happen pre-sales, right? So it needs to be part of the kickoff conversation, right? Bring that back, bring that like value promise back, and as a vendor, like we need to be very confident that this, now that the contract is signed, that we are not forgetting about the value promise that has been made. So I think that's for me the I've seen breaking points in that, right? So not a proper handover of that information. Finally, when we were trying to build up value management at the time at LeanIX, so pre-acquisition, I was having quite some interviews with people from whom I could learn, right? So and also then candidates from companies, and everybody who called himself in some way head or whatever of value engineering, they were all pre-sales, right? And I was approaching it from a post-sales or customer success perspective, and I said, yeah, and I said, like, have you ever like done it? And then I recall a very good candidate, and she said, like, look, yes, we wanted to build it up as a 50% pre-sales, 50% post-sales function. We went back to the customers, and they weren't just interested anymore in a value discussion because they had the budget, and now 12 months later they didn't want to be derailed in the project execution with some value discussion, even though the vendor was willing to support with interviews, the analysis, and all that stuff, and going back. And I think that requires some kind of like positioning it in the right way at the very beginning. That also the customers really understand it and regularly bring it up again. That brings us to the business reviews, right? So 12 months later is probably too late, because if it's just like pre-sales and that like proving the value happens not at the moment when you sign the contract, right? So typically you build that case up even 6 months before, or like 3 months before. So there's like a time gap of 15 months between the like the initial business case and when you would come back. So, and I think the only answer to that is you need to bring it back constantly, right? And yes, it might be that between the start of the contract and the end of the onboarding, there isn't yet that much progress. You need to do that check-in, and then 3 months later, or like whatever the frequency is, you want to come like refer back to that. You want to readjust, because in 15 months, so many things can change and it's just outdated. That's why it becomes irrelevant. But if you are like keep constantly like revisiting the value drivers, the value assumptions, the outcomes behind that, the blockers that you want to move out of the way, and give ammunition to the customer champion in a way that they can internally promote the results and the value, even though they might not have had the idea initially. I think that's a very strong partnership as a vendor with the customer.
And having spoken about like customer success and sales and pre-sales, right? So I would say the sales process, one, customer success, two. There's usually a third piece of this tripod, right? So the third would be product. And since you mentioned like the early stage when also value is identified, hopefully communicated and carried on to maybe a business review later on, what do you think, which part can product play in this conversation? So how much should the product maybe articulate and be able to showcase the generated value? And maybe if you have maybe an example of how this could be done, because I think this is a challenge many are tackling and who are thinking about, okay, what can sales do? What can customer success do? What can pre-sales do? But sometimes the question is then also, what if product would do that, right? So how could we solve that from that standpoint? So how would you bring product into this conversation?
I observe a lot of companies are going down that path, right? So and are like building their pricing models based on it. And if you're pricing, then you also expose that value in your solution. I recall on the LeanIX side, we also like had this application costs saved or identified for potential saving. We took that on as a KPI on the like our standard dashboards, and that triggered a lot of like relevant conversation. I think it will never replace any value discussion with the customer, but I think the beauty of it is it creates a single source of truth for that value discussion if it's in the product. And if you look at it from a broader perspective, this KPI or the KPIs will never reflect all the value that the customer gets. But if you have that North Star metric, right? So I think it's way easier to always come back to it. What are the drivers of that value? What are the influencing factors? What do you need to do right so that this improves that value? I think it makes it way more like prominent, and I think it's a very valuable discussion between the sales, the customer success team, the product teams of a company to have. How can we bring that into the product? How can we make value a currency that we speak internally, but also towards our customers? And it's not supernatural. I think the more technical your product gets, the more difficult it is. But I've seen it only resonating very well, right? So we use the capabilities of the value management team of Signavio to apply, and their learnings that they had over years, and to apply that to enterprise architecture. And the feedback from the customers was really great. Some of the customers even shared the outcomes of these workshops on LinkedIn, and it's like, okay, wow, that's really cool. If we are like managing to take that very rigorous value management approach then to a discipline where it's not naturally happening, right? And then also thought for ourselves, how does that then translate to possible product enhancement? What would we, based on that conversation and that positive feedback, what would we expect the product then to facilitate at scale for all of our customer engagements that we have?
Yeah, super interesting. And since you mentioned the tool as well, I still remember when I myself first connected my Signavio and LeanIX instances to understand the value. And that's why many of us were very excited then when things came together almost naturally at some point. So it was really great. And from a technological perspective, I found that super interesting and super exciting that it actually happened, because as many probably don't know, we had a lot of shared customers already back in the day, right, which were integrating the platform. So that was like a natural coming together of solutions. Having not focusing too much just on AI, right, which is a topic that you usually get to at some point when you talk about technology, but looking at how things might have changed, right, and how these conversations around value are going. I think this is something that the audience might find interesting to understand, where, how, or if your teams nowadays are leveraging AI in these conversations, if there's like an approach where you think it's helpful, or if it's something where you think, okay, this is still reliant more on personal interactions and a lot of senior personnel. So what role does AI play in this value topic for you?
Yeah. So I think the way we use AI will change the profile of the customer success managers and the way they interact with customers. I think it allows for way more personal interactions. I would hope it cuts away a lot of the waste that we do. And I'm not saying that executive briefings are waste, right? Because I'm benefiting from them, and when I get an overview where we stand with the customer, but when I see how that, like years ago, led to multiple questions, templates to be filled out, and today it's a click to generate a so-called cheat sheet, taking various sources of information, adoption information, like entries about customer interaction, market information, everything into account to get a view about a customer. I think I'm very happy that our CSMs don't have to do that at scale anymore, right? So I think it gives more time to be a true trusted advisor for our customers. Also, I think in the way we are analyzing large sets of data, right? I think that has changed dramatically. So previously, it took us. We always did a deep dive analysis on the Net Promoter Score and all the qualitative feedback on the product requirements that we are collecting in product board, and having the ability to analyze that, see patterns in it. I think that's invaluable, right? So to see that, to understand value drivers better, to see which other customers have that based on the documentation that we have. I think it gives so much more evidence. It needs to be checked, but confidence in the way we understand our customers and give recommendations. I think we're just at the beginning of that, right? So how the profile will change, and I'm super positive about that change, because not everything that CSMs have ever done was to the most value of the customers. Some of that was unnecessary busy work and workarounds between systems with the product, and there I see a large efficiency driver. I mean, I gave the scripting example from the beginning. I think that task that I did 8-9 years ago, that's probably 1 or 2 prompts nowadays, right? So that's that way.
And I think nobody, and especially probably many of the CSMs listening to this, right, who were CSMs in the past, will be happy to hear that some of the busy work and some of the cumbersome work will disappear, right? Because nobody loves to do that. And spending hours to save an hour in the end is usually not the best use of your time. So happy that the use of AI and the technological advances will kind of reduce that to benefit the customers even more, have conversations about the value, and actually focus on that part of this thing. I think this was already a great outlook into the future, into how some of the aspects of the roles, how they will change. Similarly, probably for sales and pre-sales, right, to be better prepared, have better cases available for customers to work on. And maybe as an intersection to maybe our last question on that topic, with all that, right, talking about the different spheres, the value focus, the understanding of value drivers, the focus also on valuable business reviews, right, which customers and vendors want to do. Just busy work EBRs don't make a lot of sense. How do you think maybe the roles will change, right? If you look at customer success and sales and pre-sales, maybe value engineering, how do you think maybe some of these roles will change, and what skills will be crucial for people who want to grow or get into these roles in the future? So how should you maybe prepare to get into that realm, and how do these roles change?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm always an advocate that a CSM is never just a relationship manager. But I think there's a truth to it that they are to a certain degree. Key is the like empathy for the customer's situation. So I think that will stay. But I always say the other part is of like understanding the product and the domain with the ability of like AI, so getting to the insights that are relevant for the customer, being more relevant for the customer, because you can easily grasp where the customer stands. You don't need to do an hour of research to do that. I think it's the role can and needs to become like more impactful, more proactive in the way we are thinking about that, more personal in the way we are like working with our customers. So that's what I assume, like the role of the CSM will for sure not go away. And I think it also depends on the size of the company that a company is in, right? So I think a CSM in the early stages really helps more to create product market fit. And on the like more scale up, it becomes slightly more commercial because roles are more specialized. But when I think about the role of the CSM in a really early stage startup, and I've heard it from a like new founder or third time founder last week here in Bonn. I mean, they are going with basically tools like Lovable to a customer to do prototype, right? And I think that's might sound far-fetched, right? Because you're not really prototyping you're not an engineer as a CSM, but being able to prototype that aspired value with a customer would be so powerful. In that say, and you can do that if you are still like early stage and understand everything about the product, and that's like totally different than I'm tracking like a list of support tickets for our customers. I think that this type of work really needs to it's not value adding. That I wouldn't want to see, but helping to shape the product market fit even more in the early stages. I think that's crucial. At the later stages of the company, understanding your portfolio in a data-driven way, being able to give like, oh, which customer do you have that has this and this problem, and you can go across your customer base based on everything that you've documented, and at the fingertip you have the customer and can then build the connection. I think that's the type of like skills where like you need to be curious, and also the possibilities, they change so fast, so that like general willingness to experiment with the technology. I think that's just super crucial, and it all means it can only come from like a high energy level to really do the right things for the customer. So I know it's been a lengthy answer, but I think doing the same job of like a CSM for the next 5 years, that will not work. So that's my key message.
I love it because I think it encapsulates everything that I used to love about the customer success manager role a while ago, right? And being able to focus on that more with the help of technology and process and everything, I think that's super helpful. And to me, it sounds like a wonderful ending because I know you're super busy and I know you have another meeting to jump to. So I'm super thankful that I got to get you to join this today. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insights. And yeah, it took us a while to see each other again, but we made it into this call. And so I'm looking forward to seeing you in person again soon in Bonn or Berlin. So thank you for joining. And yeah, hope to see you again soon. And for everybody else, thanks, Christian.
Thank you,
That's
Stephen.
all
And
for
also let me say all the best for your new company, right? So I will watch it closely from the sidelines and cheer for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lovely seeing you again and talk to you soon. For everybody else, that's a wrap for today. I want to thank Christian again so much for sharing his insights, especially some insights about the area of enterprise architecture, process mining, and his great insights from a long and impactful career in customer success, but you also heard in professional services and everything around customer management. So thank you for that. It's a wrap for today. This was our last episode for this year. We will be back next year with another few exciting guests we're already lining up. So thanks for joining, and until next time, with to customer value and beyond. Goodbye.